Hello and welcome to West Bloomfield 911. I'm Officer Rick, and on behalf of Chief Mike Patton and my brothers and sisters in the West Bloomfield Police Department, we are so glad that you turned us on and tuned us in. As always, my co-host and my friend, I want to welcome to the show once again, and this is Officer Timmy. No, Officer Timmy's on another show.
Right.
Officer David McNealy, how are you?
You can never remember my name.
No, I'm old. I don't remember these things. Officer David McNealy, I think we're going to call you, how about if we call you Mike today?
It's whatever you want. I can't run from you right now.
Okay,
so
Mike.
Whatever you want today.
All right, Mike, we're glad you're here. As you know, folks, David and I kind of have this little gag going back and forth. But as always, I'm glad to have him here. He's a good friend and a great partner. And it is a great pleasure to introduce Senator Mike Kowall. He is the Senate Majority Leader, 5th Senate District from the Michigan Senate. How are you, Senator?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Glad you're
Nice
here.
to meet
Thanks
you.
for coming on.
It's my pleasure.
Senator, don't run away. We are going to highlight a fellow officer in this case, an employee of the police department.
Great.
And I'm going to let my co-host, Officer Mike, give it away.
Guys, take a look up at your screen. I'm very pleasantly and very happy to give this one to you for the spotlight. It's Officer Tim Shepard. He's one of our recruit officers, but when I say recruit officer, Tim has 3 years as a law enforcement officer. He came to us from Lansing Police Department. He also spent some time at Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department, and he also spent some time at the Michigan Department of Corrections. So when I say recruit officer, I say that respectfully to Tim. I will also tell you guys he's got a great demeanor, and we've gotten a good batch of recruit officers here, and he's one of them, and I'm so happy that he's here.
Yep.
One of his favorite foods is Italian food. I can get with him on that one. I like that too. He likes his favorite books. He likes history novels. I can also get with him on that. So he's got a great, he's thumbs up so far. Favorite movie is Black Hawk Down. Another thumbs up. Tim, I like that movie also. His favorite music, he's eclectic. He likes everything. I get with you on that. My iPod has a bunch of different music on it, so we appreciate that also. Some of his hobbies, which are mine also. We were just talking to the Senator about that, boating and spending time with his family, his wife and his 3 children. He has a 13-year-old, 11-year-old, and an 8-year-old, and they're all active in sports. I talked to Tim a little bit a couple days ago, and he's like I was too with my children. He's all hands on deck, so I like that about that. Tim, let me read his quote, which I think is a great quote.
Yes.
It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could not have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred with sweat and dust and blood. If he fails, at least he fails with the daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold, timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. By Teddy Roosevelt. Tim, that was an awesome one. And guys, that should give you some insight into the person we hired. So rest assured he'll do a good job for you. I'm going to turn off the spotlight and turn it back over to Rick.
Yep, he is a great guy, and he brings a lot of experience as well as maturity, and we are glad to have Recruit Officer Tim Shepard. I'm sorry, Tim, to blow that, twisted on my tongue. But he's a great guy. We're glad to have him. And today, folks, please, get a lot of scammers. They call you by phone, they call you, get a hold of you on the internet, and you know what? A lot of them come door to door. Now, just because someone's soliciting door to door, it doesn't mean that they are a scammer. Of course, West Bloomfield, you have to have a license to go door to door, and most people that do in the township do not have that license. So if they are coming through your neighborhood, you can call us, we'll check them out and see if they have permission and the right to be there. But remember, some are scammers. For instance, and I know David has run on this in the road. I know I did when I was on the road. Often you get these young people that are trying to sell some type of magazine, and sometimes they're legitimate. And I feel sorry for these young kids because a lot of times they come from a different state and they're dumped there by the company they work with, and they're told, go sell, we'll pick you up 8 hours from now. Nonetheless, if they don't have that permit, we're going to ask them to leave. But you have to also remember, don't let them force you or coerce you into buying something you don't want. A lot of times, if it's a magazine subscription or some type of periodical, once you sign that you want it, it is extremely difficult often to get off of that list. And if you do decide you don't want it and you're lucky enough to get off of that list, sometimes they've often sold your information to other people. So there is one group used to be called self-starters, but sometimes there's different groups that'll take over and run those scams. And they tried to sell you magazines saying, we're a mentor group for young people. We try to help them in business. We're trying to help these young men and young women. And that's how they try to suck you in. If you're uncertain, call the Better Business Bureau, call the Attorney General's office, check and see that these people are legitimate, call us and see if they have permission to sell in West Bloomfield. Don't fall for any scam. Any questions, please feel free to call the police department or call me in crime prevention or Officer David McNealy. We will be glad to help you. Folks, don't leave. Come on back. We're going to take a short break. We're going to be with our very special guest, Mike Kowall, Senate Majority Leader from the 15th Senate District. Come on back.
You're watching West Bloomfield 911 on Civic Center TV, a service of the Greater West Bloomfield Cable Communications Commission. For more information or to watch episodes on demand, visit civiccentertv.com/WB911. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home.
The Michigan Sheriff's Association has been on the front line of providing education, training, and programs to Michigan communities since 1877. As the only organization to officially represent the Office of Sheriff in Michigan, the MSA works toward improving professional standards to better protect the citizens. To learn more about the Michigan Sheriff's Association, call 517-485-3135 or visit mysheriff.org.
Hello and welcome back. And you know what? I was corrected by my work wife, David, over here. He hit me under the table and let me know that our guest is the Senate Majority Floor Leader. And that was my mistake. So we do welcome him back, though. Senator Mike Kowall, thank you again for coming.
Thanks for having me in.
We're glad you're here. And let's talk a little bit about what made you get involved in politics, because you actually started out in private business.
I started out in private business. My family's in the cabinet millwork building business, and I started life as a carpenter. I was going to college and served an apprenticeship at the same time, and decided that finishing a 4-year degree wasn't for me, so I ended up doing a 6-year program to become a carpenter, and later on a cabinet maker, and then furniture finishing and that sort of thing.
Well, good, because we're remodeling our kitchen. What are you doing after the show?
We have a friends and family deal for you. Come and see.
They're going to guide him over there.
Yeah, that's right.
Come on over. We'll take good care of you.
Well, what spurred you on to get into politics?
Well, what really got me excited about the political world is taxes. My company kept getting more and more and more, and our profit margins went lower and lower and lower. But at that time, I had I was too young myself, and then eventually my wife Eileen and I had 2 girls, and I was busy being a dad, and that's a full-time job.
Right.
So we waited till they got a little bit older, and then I got involved with Brooks Patterson, which is there's a whole involvement
We could do
story.
a whole show just on that.
That would keep everybody entertained. But he just kept encouraging me and mentored me. And when it opened up, he said, I'd like you to run. I need somebody like you representing Oakland County and Lansing. So here I am.
Now, before, though, you did that, weren't you on a local level?
Yeah, I was on the Planning Commission at White Lake Township for a lot of years. I served on every, non-full-time board that you
What
can.
did the Planning Commission, what did they do? What did they?
Well, planning commissions formulate what the complexion of the community is going to be as far as building codes and what type of companies come in. Or do you want to be a rural community? Do you want to be a bedroom community? Do you want a little bit of both?
Do you want to drive through in your community, something like that?
Right, exactly. So you you control the growth the way the people of the township want it.
Right.
And I think White Lake and West Bloomfield have done a pretty good job of that.
Yep. Now, before, though, you came into Oakland County, I was looking at your bio, and you were actually kind of a Wayne County boy. You grew up in Detroit.
I grew up in the hood.
There you go.
I was born on 18th and Buchanan, which is right down by the old Tiger Stadium.
Yeah.
From there, I ended up in northwest Detroit around Grand River Greenfield on St. Mary's. From there to Granville, which we also called Copper Canyon because that's where all the police officers lived.
That's right. When the residency was a requirement,
Right, when
especially.
it was, yeah.
Yep.
And
Borders Dearborn right there, isn't it?
right there
there.
on between Warren and Paul,
Yeah.
which is bordering Dearborn.
Dearborn Heights.
Yeah.
Right. I
Right
grew
in
up in
there.
that area.
Oh, so you know,
Yeah,
you know it
absolutely.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
But from there out to Farmington Township and then eventually to White Lake, and that's where we've been since. We've been out here almost 40 years now.
Now, just a little sidelight. Do you remember there's a little store on Evergreen near Tireman? Little party store over there? It's still there. And of course, neighborhoods changed a lot over
Yeah.
the years, but my dad used to own that store. That's why I was.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
way back in the day.
You know, the fun thing about talking to people of our era, everybody came from Detroit.
There's always lineage
Yes.
back.
There's-
always a link back.
You know, and when you're talking to people outside, you know, Michigan, they say, "Oh, I'm from Detroit," and if they can tell you that Telegraph Road you raced for money, Woodward you picked up girls, and Gratiot you got in a fight, you're from Detroit.
I like that. That's good. The only thing is, I used to have trouble picking up the girl part, but that's another story. So,
You need a better car.
yeah, you know, I was always looking for fast women and slow cars because I did have old cars. Well, now you moved out of the Wayne County, Detroit area, and I would guess to a certain extent that having grown up in Detroit, having grown up in Wayne County, and now being in Oakland County, though, that has to give you a good perspective on how important it is for both Wayne County and Oakland County to have a connection and to work together.
We need to have a great connection with Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, especially those three counties. That's where all the money comes from to run, really realistically, to run the state.
Right.
Kent County comes in pretty close behind it, but the funding really comes from Oakland, Wayne, Macomb,
Yeah.
and sometimes not necessarily in that order.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now you started out in election in White Lake, and then Mr. Patterson suggested that you run on a state level. And before you ran in the Senate, you were in the House of Representatives, correct?
Correct. I
Talk a little bit about that.
spent 2 terms in the House of Representatives and cut my teeth there. And we, you know, we did a lot of things. We ended the residency rule
Yes.
in Detroit, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of police officers and fire officials that wanted.
happy about that.
They were. I got a lot of kisses from their
I'll
wives.
bet you did.
But so I did that for a while, and then when I left Lansing and went back into private business, and I ended up working in China for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Talk
worked-
a little bit about that.
I ended up working on some port projects and just working with the Chinese officials and local officials and, you know, American companies
Yeah.
to move goods back and forth. So it was a real education.
Now, do you think that also gave you a perspective and maybe a leg up in dealing on state issues, having contact with foreign individuals?
Oh, by all means, yeah.
Yeah.
We, you know, you don't think of Michigan as being a big exporter, but we do. We export a tremendous amount of goods, and I've worked closely with, people from England, Germany, Ireland,
Toledo.
China, Toledo, yeah, you know, going to Toledo.
That's right.
But we do a lot of trading around the world,
Yeah.
and we have some really good trading partners, and you know, most of them, they want to buy our food.
Yeah,
We don't think of Michigan as being a big agricultural state
is.
because we live here,
yes.
but we that's our number 2, and you know, we have ag, tourism, and manufacturing, and they switch orders periodically,
Right.
but that's a very, very important component of our entire, you know, economic structure here.
Right. Well, you left the House of Representatives and you ended up in the state Senate.
Well, I
Let's
ended
talk-
up as supervisor in White Lake first.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
true. That's true. Now, how many years do you spend as supervisor?
6.
Okay.
I'd spent 6 years doing that, and we're very proud of what we did because that was during some real difficult times, as you know.
Yes.
A lot of communities went through layoffs,
Yeah.
and
We were fortunate that wasn't an issue.
we managed to get through it, and no one got laid off, no one got pay cuts, no one got hurt at all, and we increased the taxable value of the 59 corridor in excess of $100 million and created 3,200 jobs in those 6 years.
Well, you know what? Obviously, as you climbed the ladder and became part of these different elected positions, obviously people of White Lake in Michigan were appreciative of that fact because now they put you in the state Senate.
Yeah, and that's I'm in the number 2 position in the Senate, and it's really humbling when you stop and think about where you got put. Every Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, I'm meeting with the governor. We talk about all the issues from things from Flint to Detroit to Detroit Public Schools to local, and we try to guide the state through it. And the governor and I don't always agree. You know,
Right.
there's times we walk out of the meeting agreeing to disagree, and
Well, that's a sign of a good leader, though. You know, that you're willing and you have a good pulse on everything, so that's okay.
well, you have to get along with people, because if you quit talking, then nothing gets done.
Right.
You know, so you have to keep the momentum going.
And do we have a problem with that in Washington? Oh, that's another story.
That's another show. That's another show.
Can you say train wreck?
Right. Well, let's talk about a couple of things that you're involved in, and I know one of them in particular is something very important to both David and I, and the men and women who serve by carrying a badge, and that's you are working on legislation that's under review. Uniform Lives Matter. Talk
Correct.
about that.
We've been discussing this internally in Lansing, what we can do to help the police and our first responders, because of all the events that have gone on. We had that instance in Texas. We had all the officers shot there. We just lost the police officer in Detroit that they're burying today.
Yeah.
We're constantly seeing a gnawing away at police officials and first responders. And we have to do something to turn that around. So we have to work on some attitude adjustments as far as the general public, some attitudes adjustments as far as police, because it's not a one-sided
Nope.
issue.
It's a two-way street.
And what I remind people about every day is, you know, they'll say, oh, the cops did X. And okay, let's stop and analyze the whole situation here. They're people too. They're under an immense amount of pressure. The minute they put that uniform on, somebody's wanting to do harm to them. So let's make sure that we give them every bit of protection that we can. Let's encourage them. Let's mentor each other. Let's make sure people are having that conversation. And sometimes it's easier just to say nothing and go home, but that's the easy part.
Right.
It's like just saying no all the time.
Right.
You have to sit down and analyze
You
it.
really do need both perspectives in order for us to move past this arena. So kudos to you for that, because we need the conversation.
Well, we're getting it out there. You know.
Yeah.
I think the general public is getting to a point where they don't want to hear about another police officer being hurt. They don't want to hear about another family losing their dad or mom. They don't want to hear about, you know, children going through the rest of their lives without their father or
Right.
mother. So people are really looking at what can we do, and we're seeing this attitude change, you know, in Detroit, where the neighbors are saying, okay, enough's enough. And you get neighbors banding together to help the police to find somebody that perpetrated some horrendous crime.
Right.
And
Well,
they eventually,
maybe before there was a code of silence.
yeah, well, don't talk,
Right.
don't snitch.
Right.
But
right.
now, you know, we can't afford to do that, especially with the amount of dangerous situations that are coming in from outside the country.
Yes.
So we have to communicate with each other.
Well, we appreciate that in law enforcement, and we thank you for that. And I know for David and I in particular, we have family histories of law enforcement. David's dad was a police officer as well as a Marine Corps veteran. My grandfather actually was a police officer in Lebanon. And yes, and then two of my cousins were police officers here in the state of Michigan as well. One was a trooper and one was a city officer. So it runs in the family, and we appreciate you and those in the Senate who are looking out for our safety as well. Another thing that's gotten a lot of press lately, and I think the two kind of go hand in hand, we're talking about autonomous vehicles. but also automobile hacking. I mean, the two are interrelated.
Well, they are. I've just moved a series of bills on autonomous vehicles, which is, as we all know, it's the driverless cars. And we just moved them out of the Senate. They're currently residing in the House of Representatives, waiting for a full vote in the House. And the hacking bill is, it's now out of committee in the Senate. It'll be on the full Senate floor probably around the second week of October. And what got my attention about the hacking is that on the news one day they were talking about these people that were experimenting, and they hacked into a Jeep Grand Cherokees into the computer.
Yes, I remember that.
Well, being that I drive a Jeep Grand Cherokee, it got my immediate attention. And we started talking to Chrysler Corporation and all the other entities, and what are we going to do to stop this? So in those conversations, we were out at TankCom, which is the old Warren tank plant, talking to the U.S. military. And that's their biggest concern about any of these automated vehicles that are out there, because it's military encrypted hardware and software with these.
Someone could hack into a tank.
Well, that could happen because they're very high tech anymore. So they're putting a lot of, what they call checks in place to help stop that. But we need to have the call it out as a crime, call it out as a serious crime,
Prosecute it.
and prosecute it. Now, when I first did it, I put the same penalties and guidelines in for carjacking with a gun,
Oh, yeah.
which you can get up to life in prison
Right.
for if you kill somebody.
Right.
And they thought in that committee maybe it was a little onerous, it was a little too heavy-handed, until I educated them all. And we amended it and changed it. There were some things the chair of the committee, Rick Jones, who's a retired sheriff,
Okay.
and he made some suggestions, and he's a law enforcement guy, so I followed his lead on that. But we finally got it out, so it'll be up for a full vote.
Okay, talk a little bit about the autonomous vehicles themselves. What are you looking at as far as legislation on that?
Well, the legislation,
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but because now Ford has come out and said they're going to be on the road in 5 years.
oh yeah, they're not only going to be on the road in 5 years, they want a car in 5 years that has no steering wheel,
Yes.
no brakes,
Yes.
no gas pedal, no nothing.
Now just imagine just if someone hacked something like that.
Well, that could be an issue, It
And
could
what
be a
do you-
problem.
Now, the legislation regarding those autonomous vehicles, is that also looking at how we as police officers now handle accidents and stuff like that?
Ideally, at the end of the day, it's going to cut back on accidents by about 94%.
Oh, wow.
Just due to the fact that these cars, as they're outfitted right now today, like in the one I was in, is not capable of getting into an accident as long as everything's working correctly. They will avoid that. So with all this new technology, you're going to see insurance rates changing, just due to the fact that your
Crash rates go down.
crash rates are going to go way down, so your liability insurance.
Fatal crashes surely will go down.
Fatal crashes should be pretty much over with. Fatalities in cars should be pretty much over. And I've been to enough accident scenes to know that I could live the rest of my life without having to go to another one.
Okay, now I have a complaint. That autonomous vehicle, does it mean that I can't get that Mustang with 600 ponies under the hood and take it out on the freeway?
No,
What
no,
about Dream Cruise?
because-
What's that going to be like?
because well, that would be interesting.
That'll
But
be the Woodward Nightmare Cruise.
But in order to go into autonomous mode, there's a button on the Ford.
Yeah.
It's right on the steering wheel, and you have to physically turn it on to go into autonomous mode. If you want to drive manually, you're still able to do that.
I'll tell you, it's a strange new world we're entering.
It is.
It's remarkable, though.
It is. It's remarkable in the fact that Google just moved here from California.
Yes, I heard that.
They bought a building in Novi, and they're going to be employing 500 people. And that's just one of
Are
a
they going to be moving
multitude.
products with drones, and are they doing that too?
No, that's a whole different, that falls to the FAA. That's a different set of
different.
guidelines. But what they're going to be doing, they're taking 100 Chrysler Pacificas, and they're going to be upfitting all the equipment in there to make them autonomous.
Senator, we only have a few minutes left. Let's talk about, I know that, and we had talked off camera, as David had mentioned, his father was laid to rest at the National Cemetery here in Michigan. What, and I know you went up there and you did a lapel pinning ceremony for our
Right.
Vietnam vets. I'm old enough to remember, and I don't know if David is, but I can remember when I had friends and others that I knew coming back from Vietnam in those days. They were like the police are nowadays. They couldn't do anything right. And a lot of them are getting the kudos and the respect and honor they deserve. Better late than never, but it is coming very late. Talk about some of that stuff that you're doing with Vietnam veterans.
We've started pinning Vietnam veterans. It's a 50-year anniversary pin, and we did that in Lansing. The first one, Lynn O'Brien and I put it together, and we had some World War II vets in. And the driver that brought him up was a Vietnam veteran. And when Lynn prepared some certificates of appreciation, we gave one to the Vietnam vet, and he started to cry. And he said, "This is the first time that I've been thanked for anything I did in Vietnam." And we couldn't let that go undone, so we did a big event up there. We put pins on 2,000 veterans last October. And since then, we have put pins on over 7,000 Vietnam veterans ourselves here in Michigan. And some of our Congress people are doing it too, and we're doing it jointly. But to them, it's a closure.
Yeah.
It's helping a lot of these wounds heal, and it's really important. Just because it was a long time ago doesn't mean those feelings still aren't very raw.
Senator, how do you
Absolutely.
find the vets? How are you guys finding them to give them pins?
Well, we do press releases, but now that they know I'm doing it, they find us.
Okay.
And actually, they're looking for Lynn, not me.
Well, I don't blame you. I'd rather look for Lynn too. Senator, we want to thank you for all you do, especially for law enforcement and our veterans here in the state of Michigan. We thank you very much. And I had a dear friend who was a veteran in Vietnam, and I know exactly how he felt. And so we thank
Thanks
you
for
for
all
that.
your service from the start to now. Thank you for everything you do.
No, you're more than welcome. It's a real pleasure and honor to do it.
Folks, we'd also like you to take a look on your screen. We want to remember a great American hero who was killed in the line of duty, and we'd like to tell him thank you for his service. Sheriff Charles Gassaway of the Colbert County Sheriff's Department in the great state of Alabama. We're remembering the sheriff today in particular because he was the first of 536 officers in the great state of Alabama who have been killed in the line of duty. Sheriff Gassaway comes from the heart of Dixie, and I said he was the first officer killed in that state. He and 5 other officers were shot and killed when the sheriff attempted to arrest a suspect for obtaining goods under false pretenses, what we think is kind of a minor crime. The suspect informed the sheriff that he'd be ready to go in for a moment, but arrived at the door with a Winchester rifle. Suspect immediately shot Sheriff Gassaway, who was in the doorway, and then he shot his brother, who was a deputy sheriff and who was standing a distance away. The suspect barricaded himself in the house as other deputies arrived on the scene, and from inside the house, the suspect shot and mortally wounded 4 additional deputies. Sheriff Gassaway was, again, the first officer to die because he died on April 6th. The other 5 deputies died on April 7th. Suspect was eventually shot and killed after members of the Alabama State Militia, known as the Wheeler Rifles, shot over 1,000 rounds at the suspect. Suspect's body was then thrown into his burning house that had been set on fire in an attempt to smoke him out. That is a crazy way to do things. But this great American hero, Sheriff Charles Gassaway, the first officer in the great state of Alabama, the Yellowhammer State, Colbert County Sheriff's Department. We say, rest in peace, brother, and we ask that you keep him and the other deputies and all the officers in the state of Alabama who have died in line of duty in your thoughts and your prayers. Sheriff Charles Gassaway, your memory will never be forgotten. Once again, we would like to thank our very special guest today, Senator Mike Kowall, Senate Majority Floor Leader, and I got it right this time.
That's right, yeah.
From the 15th Senate District. We thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for all you do for the people of the state of Michigan. Again, thank my friend and my guest, Officer David McNealy, also known as Mike. Thank you for being here, David.
My pleasure.
And folks, we thank you for watching. Remember, you can catch us 3 different ways. You can watch us on Civic Center TV. You can also go to civiccentertv.com and watch us at your convenience. Just click the on-demand button. And you can also go to YouTube. Put in West Bloomfield 911. You'll get to see all of our shows. Please keep in touch with the police department. You can follow us on Facebook. No, I got it backwards. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And coming soon to you, Snapchat. And if you really want to know what's happening in the police department, you can sign up for Nixle and Crime Mapping, and we'll tell you everything you need to know. Folks, thank you for watching. I'm Officer Rick, and remember, please take care of each other, be safe, and love one another. Tomorrow is promised to no one. We'll see you again on West Bloomfield 911.